Right, so this is the class Selenium basics and all which we saw that day, and we saw that there is a driver class for every browser like Firefox driver. Then there is Chrome driver, Internet Explorer driver to work on different types of browsers. Right, we saw this. Fine. When we create the object of Firefox driver, Firefox launches. When we create the object of Chrome driver, Chrome launches. Right. And when we create the object of Internet Explorer driver, then I launches. Right. But the question is, what if I want to run my test case on all the three browsers? Like, I cannot just create the object every time. Like, if I want to execute only on Firefox, right? So I don't want Chrome and I that time, right? What I mean to say is that suppose I'll create a new Java project, okay, and I'll name it day 3. Fine, and I'll add the jar file. Right. Now, suppose I have a class known as, say, anything like testing app. Right. Over here in this class, I have a requirement. Fine. I have a requirement. I have a requirement that I take a string and I write, say, string browser equals to Mozilla. Okay. Right. Now, if this string is Mozilla, then I want the code to work on Mozilla. If this string is equal to Chrome, then I want the code to work on Chrome. If this is I, then I want it to work on I. I hope you got my point. Right? Okay. So, how will you do this? Anyone? How can you do this? If you are working on Mozilla, then you need to create the object of Firefox driver. Right. If you want to work on Chrome, then you create the object of Chrome driver. Alright. Depending on your requirement, you can create the object. Okay. Hold on. Right. Right. But like somebody saying we can use the if statement. Okay. If I use an if statement over here, right now both the browsers will open. Fine. If I write over here if browser is equal to Mozilla, then create the object of Firefox driver. Okay. Right. Else if the browser is equal to Chrome, then create the object of Chrome driver. Right. But this is again not a viable solution because after creating these objects, I want to work on them. So how do I check over here whether I have to work on F1 or CD, right, on Chrome driver or Firefox driver? So the solution to this comes, this is a problem, right? The solution to this comes from the concept of interfaces in Java. Okay. Also, Firefox driver has got many functions, and Chrome driver also has got many functions. If I have to link, if I have to click on a link in Chrome, and if I have to click on a link in Firefox, right? Then will the commands be different? Okay. So the answer is no, the commands are not different. Okay, the interfaces, the concept of interfaces when you study, you'll come to know about it. Fine. So let's talk about interfaces right now. Alright, suppose I make a new class over here. Say I make the class bank. Right. Or hold on, not a class. I'll make a new interface. Okay, I'll tell you what an interface is. Right. I'll make the interface bank. Okay. Interface is like, for example, when you want to buy a book, right? You check the first page of the book to have a look at the contents of the book, the index page, right? So it gives an overview, an abstract kind of an overview, which tells you what the book will contain, right? So an interface is also like that. It's something like abstract, but it will tell what the application is supposed to do, right? Okay, or for example, when you go out to have food in restaurant, you have a look at the a la carte menu over there. That a la carte menu is like an interface for you to understand what the restaurant is offering. You don't know how they will prepare it, but you know what all is being offered to you. So similarly in Java as well, interface tells you that what all features the application is supposed to offer. For example, what all can bank offer? We can have functions like public void deposit money. Okay, so in interface the functions are there but the bodies are not there. Okay, the bodies to those functions are not there, right? Similarly, public void hold on, withdraw money, right? So you will have some features like this. Okay, public void issue ATM, something like this, right? So a bank has got these three features, right? So this interface is briefly telling you what the bank is supposed to do. Fine. Okay. Now if I make a new class over here, known as Citibank, right? Okay. So Citibank is a bank, right? So in Java we write something like this, that the class is implementing bank interface. Citibank class implements the bank interface. Citibank will get an error. If you move your mouse over the error, you will get the option of adding the unimplemented methods. Now, if a class is implementing an interface in Java, right, it is mandatory for that class to implement all the functions of that interface. If Citibank is implementing bank interface, it has to implement all the three functions of this interface, right? So if I move my mouse over here and select add unimplemented methods, you will get all the three functions generated in this class. So it's mandatory for a class to implement all the functions of an interface in, or if it is implementing the interface. If you write in front of the class name that this particular class is implementing any interface, you'll have to implement the functions. Fine. Inside this I can write hold on, city deposit money, city withdraw money, city issue ATM. Fine. Okay. Right. So these three functions are there. Alright. And inside these functions I have just written simple system.out.println. Okay, how is this useful? We will look at that in some time, just be with me. Okay, now suppose if I create another class known as say HSBC Bank. Right, the HSBC Bank is implementing the bank interface. So you will write over here, it implements bank. Right. Okay, so what you can do over here is that you can move your mouse again over the error and select add unimplemented methods. All the unimplemented methods will come up. Okay, hold on. Right, this @ override sign, it means that this function is coming up from the bank interface. Okay, if a layman is looking at your code, just by looking at the code he will understand that this function deposit money is coming from the bank interface. Okay, right. Now inside this you can write HSBC depositing money. Right. Oh, hold on. HSBC withdraw money. HSBC issue ATM. Fine. Okay. So you have got two banks, Citibank and HSBC Bank, implementing the bank interface, implementing the functions of the interface. But what is the usage of this thing? I could have never made the bank interface. I could have directly made two classes, Citibank and HSBC Bank. Okay, you understand my point, right? What is the use of making those classes, making the interface, and making the making your what do you say? Making the classes implement the interface, right? The advantage is that this kind of thing gives a structure to your application, right? We know that bank is an interface, right? This is the bank interface. Both HSBC, hold on, yeah, HSBC and Citibank both are implementing the interface, right? Just when you look at the bank interface, right, you will come to know that fine, what all is there inside these two classes. you'll come to know. If tomorrow a third bank comes up, say Bank of America or anything, right, it will also have the same functions which are there in this bank interface. Alright, although each of these classes implement the functions in its own way. HSBC will implement deposit money in its own way, right, withdraw money in its own way, issue ATM in its own way, right, and Citibank will implement in its own way, but the functions would be the same, the name of the functions, right? Okay, so you don't have to really worry that if you have got 100 classes implementing the bank interface, you simply know that okay fine, these three functions will be there in the 100 different classes. Okay, right. Yes, HSBC Bank can also have its own functions, right? For example, a function like public void, say international transfer. Say this is a unique service offered by HSBC, but it will always have these three functions. Okay, right. Now this thing is very helpful in Selenium. All right. Okay, hold on. There are questions being asked. Hold on. Will the common functionalities? Yeah, the common functionalities can be put inside the interface. Okay, Mansa interface kind of implement inheritance only. Okay, now if you go to the website of Selenium, seleniumhq.org, and go to the download link, and you look at the Java doc. In this Java doc, right, in this Java doc, whatever is there in italics is an interface. Whatever class name on the left side is in the italics is an interface, and all the non-implementing classes are written for every interface. For example, giving you a very simple example. Hold on. Yeah, mouse is written in italics. Mouse is an interface. It's got functions like click, context click, mouse do, down, mouse move, and all everything. Okay, and all the two implementing classes are event firing mouse and HTML mouse. Alright, I hope you got my point. Fine. Similarly, everybody has heard about Webdriver, right? The word Webdriver. Okay, Webdriver is actually an interface inside Selenium. It is the main interface. The whole story starts from here. Alright, and all the implementing classes for this interface are these particular classes. Where the classes are mentioned in the documentation: Chrome driver, event firing driver, Firefox, HTML unit, IE, remote, Safari. So all these classes would have the functions which are defined in the interface WebDriver. So you don't need to worry what function will be there in Firefox driver, Chrome driver, HTML unit driver. You really don't need to worry. You just need to look at the interface WebDriver. Okay, and you just need to look at the method summary. Fine, these all functions are there which are inside interface WebDriver, and they will definitely be there inside the other classes. Okay, right. So if you have to close the browser, whether it's Firefox driver or Chrome driver or any driver, the function would always be close. Alright, fine. Now one more usage of interface. The first usage is, we saw, the first usage is that the function, the class would have the same, the class which is implementing an interface, all the classes would have the same function names. Right. Another advantage is, hold on, I'll create a new class and call it just like say test. Okay, now listen to this carefully. People, they actually get confused whenever I teach this. Okay, if I want to create the interface, if I want to create the object of Citibank, city equals to new Citibank, I can create, that's okay. If I want to create the object of HSBC, I can create HSBC bank, HSBC equals to new. Right? Okay. Can I create the object of bank interface? If I try it out, if I write bank B equals to new bank, I'll get an error. You cannot create the object of an interface. Interface is something which is incomplete. Okay, you cannot use it. You can just implement it and you can create the objects of the implementing classes. You cannot create the object of interface which is not complete. It is incomplete thing. It is abstract thing. Okay, with Citibank, I can call the functions of Citibank like deposit money, withdraw money, issue ATM, right? And similarly, with HSBC object, I can call the functions of HSBC. The functions names would be the same. Okay, right, but the only thing is the class object which is calling are different. Right. Apart from these three functions, deposit money, withdraw money, and issue ATM, HSBC is also offering another feature known as, which I just told you, one more function, international transfer. This function is only present inside the HSBC class. Right. Okay. So when I run this, obviously, when you run this, it will print the corresponding output. Right. Okay. Actually, I wrote nothing inside this. I can just type something. Okay, when I run this, you see that? Fine. Right. Now comes a little tricky part. Okay. Okay, the question being asked is, can interface have variables? Yes, it can have. I can declare a variable, say int minimum balance equals to 10,000. Okay, look, whatever variable I create inside an interface, okay, by default it is static and final. Final means you cannot change the variable later on, and by default it is static in nature, right? In HSBC Bank, I cannot say that, say inside the deposit money function I can write bank dot uh, hold on, this is the bank interface, right? Just a minute. Where did I declare the variable? Okay, sorry, I should have declared the variable inside the bank interface. Okay, sorry. So inside HSBC Bank, I can access the variable by writing the bank dot, because it's by default static. I cannot change it. I'll get an error. Okay, the field cannot be assigned, right? Because if you are declaring any variable inside an interface, you have to give it a value, and that would be the final value of that variable. You cannot change it later on. That means all the banks which are implementing the bank interface would have the minimum balance of 10,000. It's static and it is final. Okay, but you don't need this thing. You will not require this in Selenium, but just understand. Right. What you would require is, I'm creating the object of Citibank and HSBC Bank over here and calling the functions. So far so good. Right. Now I'll create the object in a little different way. I'll write bank B equals to new HSBC Bank. Now this is a little different thing which I have written. Earlier I used to write HSBC Bank HSBC equals to new HSBC Bank. Now I have written interface reference, bank is the interface, reference equals to new class which is implementing the interface. Okay, right? What is the difference between this line and this line? Right, the difference is that with B I can access all the functions which are there in the HSBC Bank coming from the bank interface. I cannot access the functions which are for the bank interface, which the bank interface has specially designed for itself. Sorry, which the HSBC Bank has specially designed for itself. I can write B dot deposit money. I can write B dot withdraw money. Right. I can write B dot issue ATM. These three functions are coming from the bank interface. I can access them with this. Right. All this will actually end up if I run this. Hold on. If I run this, you will see that this will actually execute, and just a minute. The console is not coming. Yeah. This will actually execute and print HSBC depositing money. It has called the functions of HSBC. Okay. Right. Yes, you can write bank B equals to new Citibank as well. But you cannot write B dot international transfer, which is a function kind of local to, or which is a property of only HSBC Bank, which is not coming from the bank interface. You cannot write it like this. Okay, right. But what is the advantage for this? We understood that fine. With bank B equals to new HSBC bank, you can actually call the functions inside the HSBC bank class which are coming from the interface, and you cannot call the functions which are defined by HSBC bank by its own, right? But what is the advantage of doing this? Okay, the advantage is that I can also write something like, say, bank B1 equals to new city bank, interface reference equals to new class which is implementing the interface. Okay, right. So with this also I can access the functions in Citibank. Right, with B1 I can access the functions in Citibank which are coming from the bank interface. Okay, now how is this helpful? It is helpful because, say I am writing bank X equals to null. That means X is not pointing towards anything. On my decision, I can make X point towards new Citibank, right? Use the Citibank object, Citibank.deposit money, or on the next line, I can also make X point towards the new HSBC bank and use the functions of HSBC which are coming from the bank interface. Did you understand this point? Is there anyone who is not able to understand? Don't feel shy to ask questions. You can definitely ask questions. Okay. Right. So when I write bank B equals to new HSBC bank, right, or bank B1 equals to new city bank, right, you can access the functions of HSBC bank coming from the bank interface with B. With B1 you can access the functions of Citibank coming from the bank interface. Now suppose I write this line, bank X equals to null. X is the bank reference. Null means it is not pointing anywhere. This B was pointing to new HSBC bank. This B1 was pointing towards new Citibank. I said that X is not pointing towards anything. Maybe on my requirement on the next line, I can make X point towards the object of Citibank. Okay, right. Then call the functions. Right, and then move X to HSBC bank and call the functions of HSBC bank. Right. So when you run this, and if you look at the last two lines, right, you see that Citi depositing money, deposit money, and HSBC deposit money. Now, how is this helpful in Selenium? You'll come to know. Right. For example, when I create the object of Firefox driver, all right, hold on, just a minute. I write something like this. Right. When I create the object of, hold on, Chrome driver, I write something like this. Right. This is how we create the objects of these classes. Fine. Right. Now, as I told you that if you look at the Selenium documentation, right, in this documentation, Webdriver is an interface. Right. Look, we are not Okay, Ashwini is asking question, X is one variable, but we are inserting two. Look, we are not inserting two objects, right? X over here is like a reference. Remember the day 2 where I told you what an object reference is? Okay, on the line number 29, right? On the line number 29, the object of Citibank is formed in the memory, and X will point towards the object of Citibank. Then the object of HSBC is formed and X is removed from here. It no longer points towards the old Citibank object. It will now go and point towards the HSBC object. Okay, this is actually what happens. Right. Now similarly, when we are using Selenium, we can create the objects of individual classes, Firefox driver, Chrome driver and all. Right. And if you look at the documentation, Webdriver is an interface. Alright. So I can also write like this, Webdriver, say W1 equals to new Firefox driver. Okay. Right. Hold on. This is because the Firefox driver is actually implementing the WebDriver interface. Alright, this is because Firefox driver is actually going and implementing the WebDriver interface. These two lines will open Firefox. But the difference is that with W1 I can access the functions in Firefox driver which are coming from the WebDriver interface, not the ones which are kind of owned by Firefox driver, the ones which are only present in Firefox driver. But luckily there aren't many functions like that. Okay, almost everything in Firefox driver is coming from the WebDriver interface. The functions which are mentioned over here under WebDriver interface are the ones which we will be using a lot. Right. Similarly, on the same lines, W2 equals to new Chrome driver. Okay, right, WebDriver W2 equals to new Chrome driver. So now you can access the functions which are in WebDriver interface and are being implemented in the Chrome driver class. Okay, right. So instead of this, you can simply write, say, WebDriver driver equals to null. And depending on your requirement, whether you have to work on Firefox or Chrome, fine, we can write driver equals to new Chrome driver if I have to work on Chrome. Right, if I have to work on Chrome, you need to write driver equals to new Chrome driver. If I have to work on Firefox, then driver equals to new Firefox driver. You can point the same driver reference towards any particular driver class object. Okay, right. Yeah, you can make W1 also point towards, yeah, look, hold on. If you want, there's a question being asked. Yes, you can do that. On the next line, you can also make W1 point towards the new Chrome driver. Yeah, yeah, Ashpreet, you can do that. Okay, right, fine. Now, if you go back to your file which I had made, where I had said that, fine, I want to open the browser of my own choice, right? Mozilla or Chrome or IE, right? So what we'll do, we'll not write like this. We'll not create individual objects, but we'll take help of the WebDriver interface. Fine. What we'll do is that we'll decide on the top that WebDriver driver equals to null. That means that it's not pointing towards anything, right? In case the browser is Mozilla, then the driver will point towards new Firefox driver. Okay. In case if it is Chrome, hold on. Then you set the system property of Chrome and make the driver point towards Chrome driver. Right. Once the driver is initialized to either Firefox driver or Chrome driver, you can call the functions, you can start interacting with it. If I write over here driver dot, these functions would be the ones which are common in Firefox driver as well as Chrome driver, because both of them, all the functions are coming up from the interface. If I write driver dot get, right, say the URL http yahoo.com. So whether it opens up Mozilla or whether it opens up Chrome, it will take it to Yahoo because the get function comes up from the interface WebDriver, which is having the functions common for all the implementing classes. Did you guys understand the concept? You have to do it with your own hands, only then you will understand it. Right, if I run this code, right, it will open the browser and it will take you to yahoo.com. Now it's opened up Firefox and it's taking you to yahoo.com. Okay, right. Now the next question arises, which comes in the mind, or the next topic which comes into the mind. If I have to interact with the components, interaction with objects on the page or web elements. In Selenium we call, look, rather in automation, if you talk about any automation tool, right, hold on Sundaram, I'll answer a question. Right, if you talk about any automation tool, right, what is an object in any automation tool? Anything which is there on your test application is an object. Rather, your test application is an object. If there is any button on it, technically it's known as an object. If there's a text field, button, all the components on your application are known as objects. In Selenium, we also call them web elements. Right? If you have studied QTP, don't confuse this with web element of QTP. That is very different. Okay. In Selenium, a link is a web element, a text box is a web element, a button is a web element, the normal text on the application is a web element. Fine. So how do you recognize those web elements and how do you interact with them? That's the next thing which we are going to study. Okay, one more question is being asked. When we write Webdriver driver equals to null, is the driver in memory? Or look, when I write this line Webdriver driver equals to null, this is the reference, this is the pointer, right? It is there in the memory, but it is not pointing towards anything, it is blank. When we write this line driver equals to new Firefox driver, okay, right, when we write this line it starts pointing towards the Firefox driver object. Alright, so the next topic is interacting with the web elements, interacting with the page, right? Okay, so I'll not take that up today because hardly 10 minutes are left and I need time for that. Okay, so we'll take it up in tomorrow's class. Fine. And any questions from anyone regarding the course, regarding anything?